This week, we're really diving into some uncharted waters
Hmm.
with Vice President Kamala Harris's first ever interview on Fox News.
Right.
And, you've sent us a stack of articles analyzing this
Yeah.
high-stakes event, and
Yeah.
we want to unpack why this interview has everyone talking and what we can learn from it.
I think it's so fascinating because it's like a case study in campaign strategy when you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
appearing on a network that hasn't always been,
Right.
let's just say, supportive
Yeah.
of the current administration.
Right.
It's a calculated risk.
It is.
And it signals that the Harris campaign is trying to win over a specific demographic this time around.
Okay.
Those Republican-leaning voters who might be looking for an alternative
Right.
to Trump.
Those potentially disaffected Republicans that are so crucial
Yes.
in this election because they could swing the vote either way.
It's huge.
And right out of the gate, Harris didn't shy away from addressing the elephant in the room,
Mhm.
Trump's enemy within rhetoric.
Yeah.
Now, for those who might not recall, Trump has repeatedly used this phrase to target his political rivals.
This is where I think her strategy becomes so clear.
Right.
By directly calling out this rhetoric on
Yeah.
Fox News, she's challenging the very audience that might find Trump's message appealing.
Right.
It's like walking into the lion's den and saying,
Oh.
this right here, this is dangerous.
It was a really powerful moment, especially when she went on to suggest that Trump might even be willing to use the military against his own citizens.
Right.
This wasn't just about policy differences. This was about painting Trump as a threat to democracy itself.
And she uses incredibly strong language to do so. Unstable, dangerous, unfit to serve.
Yeah.
These aren't terms you typically hear from a sitting vice president about a former and potentially future president.
Right.
This is Harris drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Trump she was distancing herself from.
Right.
Remember that nothing comes to mind comment she made on The View
Yes.
when asked about doing things differently than Biden? Well, she addressed that head on in this interview, stating that her presidency would not be a continuation of Biden's.
This is a really crucial point because it speaks to a larger criticism that I think the Harris campaign is trying to counter.
Okay.
And that is the perception that a vote for Harris is simply a vote for 4 more years of the Biden administration.
So she's walking this tightrope of acknowledging Biden's legacy
Yes.
while also presenting herself as a new generation of leadership.
Right.
A message clearly designed to appeal to voters who might be looking for a fresh start.
It's a delicate balancing act.
It is.
And you know how well she manages this perception could be critical to her success.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of delicate balances,
Yeah.
let's talk about how Harris handled the issue of immigration.
Immigration is always such a complex issue, and
okay.
it's one that Fox News knew would be a key point in this interview.
For sure.
They really pressed Harris on her past positions,
Right.
particularly her record as a prosecutor, trying to expose any potential contradictions.
Yeah, and it's like we see her trying to navigate those waters.
Yeah.
Like she acknowledged the very real concerns that some voters have about border security,
Right.
particularly highlighting tragic cases like that of the Georgia nursing student who was killed by an undocumented immigrant.
Right.
This resonates with those who prioritize a strong stance on immigration.
But she didn't stop there, did she?
No.
It felt like she immediately pivoted to talking about the bipartisan border security bill
Right.
that Republicans ultimately blocked.
Exactly, and that's such a strategic move because it deflects criticism
Right.
and appeals to those moderate voters who are just so frustrated with this partisan gridlock
Right.
by saying, look, we tried to address this in a bipartisan way,
Yes.
but we were blocked.
Yeah.
She's shifting the blame
Right.
while also highlighting her willingness to work across the aisle.
Right. It's such a tightrope walk, though, because she also needs to address those
Absolutely.
who support more progressive immigration policies.
Right, and she attempts to do that
Yeah.
by emphasizing the need for comprehensive immigration reform,
Yeah.
signaling to those voters that she's not simply about enforcement,
Right.
but also about finding those long-term solutions.
Right.
However, she also stated directly that she would not decriminalize illegal border crossings, a statement clearly aimed at those moderate voters who might see that as too radical a move.
It was fascinating to observe, and it really highlights how this one issue,
Yeah,
immigration, encapsulates the challenge of appealing to a broad spectrum of voters.
absolutely.
Now, we can't forget about the unexpected twist in the interview,
Right.
the discussion on transgender rights.
Yes,
It seemed to kind of come out of left field.
it did, and I think it's important to remember the context here.
Okay.
A recent Trump campaign ad targeted Harris's past stance on gender-affirming care for prisoners.
Okay.
Framing it in a way that's designed to tap into a lot of the anxieties and, frankly, prejudices that exist around this issue.
Of course.
And Fox News. Knowing this is a hot-button topic.
Yeah.
Use that ad as a springboard to put Harris on the spot.
It was calculated.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see how she handled it.
Yeah.
She could have easily tried to deflect or, downplay her past statements.
Sure.
Or shy away from the issue altogether.
Right.
Instead, she chooses to meet it head on.
I was surprised when she pointed out that such surgeries were, in fact, available under the Trump administration as well, based on medical necessity.
Exactly.
It felt like she was calling out a double standard.
Absolutely. She even used a great analogy. She said, I think that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing, stones when you're living in a glass house.
Wow.
It was a bold move to essentially accuse the Trump campaign of hypocrisy on this issue.
And then she very deliberately pivoted to a message of following the law.
Yes.
Repeating it several times.
Yes.
It seemed like a very deliberate strategy to shut down further discussion without looking evasive.
Yeah. Exactly. By framing it as a matter of law, she neutralized the emotional charge of the issue and avoided giving any further ammunition to those who might try to use it against her.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see, and especially with such a sensitive topic, too.
Right.
But it really speaks to, I think, the larger strategy at play here, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
It seemed like this interview was as much about how she said things as what she actually said.
100%.
Because we talked about, the Harris campaign really trying to reach those disaffected Republicans.
Right.
Those who might be willing to consider a different path this time around.
This interview was so carefully crafted.
Yes.
To appeal to their sensibilities.
It's like she was trying to dismantle this image of herself that's been built up by her opponents, right? Radical leftist, the out-of-touch Democrat.
Yeah, and by appearing on Fox News.
Exactly.
Which is a network that, again, not exactly known for being friendly to Democrats. She's challenging those assumptions head on.
Yeah.
By engaging thoughtfully, even when she's confronted with these really difficult questions.
Right.
She's presenting herself as someone who is reasonable, experienced, and perhaps most importantly, not afraid to have a conversation.
And that's huge.
It's risky.
Yeah.
But it's also a sign that the Harris campaign is taking this election very seriously. And they understand that every vote is going to count.
That brings us to the million-dollar question then.
Yeah.
Did she succeed?
Right.
Did she manage to resonate with that very crucial demographic?
We'll see.
Only time will tell.
Only time will tell.
But it has sparked a conversation.
For sure.
And that's always the first step.
Yes, absolutely.
To swaying public opinion.
It's been so interesting to unpack this with you.
It has.
And really just delve into the strategy and the nuances of how she approached this.
What would you say is the most important takeaway maybe for our listener?
This election is far from over. It's going to be a battle for every single vote. Moments like this interview remind us just how high the stakes are.
Yeah.
Stay informed.
Right.
Engage with different viewpoints.
Yeah.
And perhaps most importantly, make your voice heard when the time comes.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This has been a deep dive for the books, folks.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
As we explore this really intricate dance of politics and strategy.
It was a good one.
Until next time, keep asking those questions and stay curious.